Okay, hello, hello. A little impromptu live for me here today on this Saturday afternoon. I've been thinking about doing this for a while because I want to talk about networking with you guys and maybe also some other stuff if anyone comes online and if there's any questions. Um, I keep getting this thing about we're talking a lot about networking and coffee meetings and how do I actually do good coffee meetings? And the simple answer, I got this from Tom Bilyeu. I can recommend if you're anything into like motivation, getting stuff done, then follow him. And he didn't say this about coffee meetings, but he said this about networking and in general. To be interesting, be interested. So, what that means is that a lot of the time when we network and when we show up, we're kind of just talking about ourselves and we're like, hey, this is me. I'm looking for this kind of job and blah, 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 blah. Me, right? Whereas instead, if you're interested in other people and you're asking about other people, they're much more likely to remember you as someone interesting because we really love to we'll talk about ourselves, but we also really love to share our knowledge and our expertise, right? So when people are talking about, hey, I am this person who something, then it's like, oh, that's really interesting. Tell me some more. Because then you are the one that they're going to remember because you showed an interest in them. So always when you go to networking events, when you go do stuff, um, in general, networking wise, really go and make sure that you are super interested in other people. Ask them all the questions and then make sure to, of course, connect with them afterwards. So, or before you part ways at whatever event or the coffee meeting, wherever it is, remember to connect with them either through email or LinkedIn. I'm very much um, highly like LinkedIn positive. In Denmark, LinkedIn is so important. So if you're looking for a LinkedIn course, either as a job seeker, as a business owner, feel free to reach out. I start courses once in a while. Um, but it's very important to get that connection, to get that like, hey, where can we continue this conversation afterwards? And that will be what's that's what gonna give you the um leg up compared to other people networking as well and being like, I'm gonna follow up. So first thing, be really interested in the person you're speaking to, and then two, follow up afterwards, because a lot of the time, again, especially if you're joining events or conferences, these things where people are meeting a lot of other people, it can be really interesting, or sorry, it can be really hard to remember people. But really also figure out where is it that I'm going to start over. It can be really hard to remember people. So, how is it that you can be the one who is remembered? So, it's about being interested, but it's also about following up and saying, hey, we met at this event and it was really interesting. I had a lot of fun. And we talked about this thing that I found really interesting. Based on that, I read this article or this book or listened to this podcast at one time where, you know what, I really wanted it to share that with you because I think based on our conversation that you would find this very interesting. So one thing is following up, but also even better, follow up and add some value. Figure out what is the value you can add to this person. And again, just as the other people are going to be extremely probably overwhelmed by so many new people, so much input at a conference, at a job fair, wherever it is that you are, um, sorry, that means that it can be a really good idea to actually take good notes. So every time you've spoken with someone, make sure that you grab a piece of paper, your phone, I don't care, whatever it is, but just take some notes. So until you just or wait with just walking to the next person and start talking to them. when you're done with the conversation, you've connected with the person in some way, stop, take some notes about the conversation, make sure to write their name, have it under the right contact, have it under the right information, so that when you get home, maybe not the same day or the day after, but a few days after, reach out to that person, say, hey Diana, hey Sophie, hey Mess, whoever, what, use their correct name. It was so great to meet you, and then have this follow-up email. You will for sure stand out. Not a lot of people do this, and in a situation where networking is so important, this is a really good way. And then keep those notes, have somewhere on your computer, have a notebook. I would suggest computer because searchability, where you kind of keep track of people and be intentional about your job search and your connections with people, because we want to connect with people genuinely and we want to get to know people, but we also want it to be something that can actually benefit us in one way or another, right? So I had this really interesting conversation. I did a workshop on, called it strategic networking, and I think I'm going to change that name to intentional networking, because we had this discussion or this theme come up of like, but am I not just manipulating people then? It's like, no, not really, because just like, you also remember things about everyone else in your life, right? You're just trying to put this into some kind of I don't know, system where you can actually remember, like, I don't know, I'm getting old. That might be it, that I don't remember things about a million people I meet, right? So I would rather be intentional about it and be like, oh yeah, this person really loves this, so let me be really thoughtful and talk about that, because I want to deepen the connection as well. And the more I get to know people, the more I also remember about them, of course. I really don't think that we're talking about manipulation. We're talking about you figuring out who are the people you want in your life, because networking is that, who do you want in your life? Who do you want to create these deeper connections to? You want to create them with people you think are interesting, right? You want to, both in your personal and your professional life, you want to create a network that's valuable for you, but of course also valuable for other people. Because again, if you're starting to go into it with like, I'm just going to create a network that is 100% valuable for me, but I don't care what other people get out of it, then we can maybe start talking about manipulation. But intentional networking is about creating win-win situations. It's about creating those situations where it's like, I'm going to say yes to meeting with you, even though I don't necessarily see a string, like a win for me right here, but you probably have an interesting story. And I want to get to know you so that I can maybe also connect other people in my network, because maybe you're not super relevant for me and for what I want to do in my career and in my life, but getting to know another person in general is valuable, and getting to know that person might actually help you help someone else, right? So there's always some value to get, and we want to create win-win-win, a lot of wins, winnable situations for not just ourselves, but for the people in our lives. So when we're thinking about networking and really being like, I'm not just networking for me, I'm actually networking for my entire network. So when I meet people, being like, okay, so this is really interesting. You know about this and this and this and this. And I wonder who in my network I can help by connecting you. And by having some kind of overview of the people in your network that you can actually search to create those connections, I really don't see how that is a bad thing and how that is manipulating. I think this is about, how can I give the most value to the most people? And I think that's really helpful and really important. If you have any questions about networking or coffee meetings or anything like that, please write your comments in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on the chat and come back to you at a later point as well. I do want to talk a little bit more about coffee meetings also, now that we're here, because what I've learned after working with a lot of highly educated internationals in Denmark is that coffee meetings are apparently not a very international thing, in the sense that when we're talking about a coffee meeting in Denmark, there's something about the culture that's pretty different from a lot of other countries. And one of them is, for example, that in Denmark and the culture we have, there's no, it's not a hey, do you want to go on a date with me, to asking someone for a coffee at a cafe. When you do it in a professional, with a professional setting. So by that I mean that I know that yes, a date can also be a coffee at a cafe, and culture and all of that, but just remember that as long as you, with the intent, with what you're going with, are saying, hey, I would love to know some more about your industry, your company, your career path. Are you up for grabbing a cup of coffee to have a chat about that? Something along those lines. When you do that, you can actually um, you can actually do it at a cafe. You can also choose to say, I would love to come to your workplace and have that meeting. And if you feel very awkward about doing this with the opposite sex, then invite someone who is the same sex as you, so that it doesn't become awkward for you. When you kind of get into the flow of doing coffee meetings, it's not that bad. It's not an issue, because we're there to talk about professional things, right? And sometimes we talk about other things as well, but it's not the point, it's not the intention of the meeting. But sometimes the conversation just flows and becomes something more than just the core professional things, but that's called getting to know each other, right? That's strengthening the networking part. So really think about how can you make a setting where you both feel comfortable, and that's like, this is not an issue in terms of the Danish workforce and how we do things in Denmark. Um, think about um, whether you're looking for a job, whether you are self-employed or you have a job, coffee meetings and networking is really, really important. And I just feel like, well, I don't feel like, but I know that for me, networking is something you do all the time. It's not something you only do when you're job seeking or only do when you need new clients or whatever it is. Coffee meetings and networking is this steady thing that's happening all the time. And then you can, on top of that, have your job search, or you're looking for clients, or whatever it is that you are doing. Um, I usually have maybe 1 or 2 coffee meetings a week, depending on how busy I am. Sometimes I do have more. The longest coffee meeting I have, usually they're between like maybe 30 minutes to an hour. Mine I usually put aside about an hour for a coffee meeting. The longest one I've had ended up being 4 hours, which was also a bit insane. But that's like we didn't have a back end, any of us, and the conversation just flowed, and there was nothing into that other than actually talking about business, talking about who we are as people and our values and the things we kind of did business wise that could help each other out. So I think that's a really, really important thing to remember. I do want to get in here as well that there are 3 types of people that you should not invite for coffee meetings, because coffee meetings are something where you don't, it's not something you pay for, right? It's just like an exchange of some with someone who is can give you some knowledge, right? So the 3 people you should not invite for coffee meetings is HR people, unless you work in HR yourself or you're looking for jobs in HR yourself. Then go ahead, then invite them. But actively hiring managers are number 2. So people who are looking for to hire someone new at the moment, do not ask them either, because it's going to seem like you want to jump ahead in line for an interview. So that's a bad idea. Any other manager who's not hiring at the moment, ask away. That could be a great way to strengthen that connection, right, into um to being first in line when they then have an open position. And the third one is going to be career consultants like me, someone where we actually live of doing this. This is how we earn our money. So by asking me to a coffee meeting, you're basically asking me to work for free, which that's not very polite, and most of us will definitely also say no to that. What I do, I connect with people who are more, I would do coffee meetings with other job consultants, for example, because again, we are then exchanging knowledge and talking about the industry, learning from each other. Whereas someone who asks a job consultant for a coffee meeting who's not in the same area, who's an engineer or in HR or whatever it is, will be more of a, hey, can you help me kind of thing. And that I would love to help you. I would also love to be able to pay my rent. So that part is going to be a paid service, of course. But there are so many other people, because of course you can get value from job consultants and career consultants and talent coaches and whatever we call ourselves. Very valuable. But you can get really good information from people who actually work in the type of job you want, in the type of company you want. So think about, so basically a job consultant, someone like me, what we give you, we give you the framework. When you hire someone like me, we help you look through your material, give you frameworks. We kind of help you make your material as good as we can. We teach you to network. We teach you job search, basically. But when you're networking, what you're learning is all of the information to put into this, because it's amazing that you want to be networking with other engineers, or you want to call a company. Please do that. Call a company based on their job description, and you're coming to me and asking like, hey Diana, what is a very good question to ask for this company when I need to call? And I can definitely give you some like more broad questions, but the really amazing questions that you can ask and show your expertise to the potential new manager is the questions that are based in your knowledge, which I don't have. So basically, you can create even better questions and be even more specific if you do coffee meetings and get to know about areas of expertise in your industry, in the type of jobs that you would like, by doing these coffee meetings with those people who can give you that information that you can then use when you call and ask about a potential job. I hope that makes sense. You know what? And that's we're gonna call that a day today. Also in the chat, if you want, or in the comments, if there's specific themes, specific things you would like me to actually talk about. Also, remember, if you're looking for someone to guide you, coach you, either on LinkedIn or on job search in general in Denmark, LinkedIn is worldwide. I can do that anywhere, but in Denmark, in terms of job search, then feel very free to reach out to me. Have an amazing, amazing day. Bye.